Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cozett Contemplates. I am so grateful that you are here. If you have been following me, you know that I am just kind of like ramping my channel back up again, and I am endeavoring to bring you new content that will be relevant and healing for you on your journey. So I am super stoked today because I have as a guest my best friend, my cousin, Margo Holder. Margo, or AKA Grizz, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I'm really stoked because this episode has been a long time coming. So often we have the most amazingly deep and profound conversations. And so often during those conversations, after those conversations, I just wish the world could have been privy to them. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, yes.
Yeah.
And totally unscripted, so we're going off the grid here today.
Yeah, for sure. We're both out of our comfort zones right now. But I think that's what makes it so fun too, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm stoked that you are here and like you said, we're unscripted. So we're just gonna kind of do us and allow the conversation to unfold. I have no doubt in my mind that this episode, anyone who watches it will be able to walk away with something that they can tuck away in their hearts that will be transformative, humorous, entertaining, and possibly a catalyst for their life's journey. That is kind of how our conversations usually are.
Mhm.
All
Yeah.
of those things in one. Um, so I have always said that you are my trailblazer. Um, if it were not for your example of quiet ambition, I don't think I would be where I am today. I know that I wouldn't be. And you are also one of my favorite thought leaders. Your opinions, your philosophies, the way that you arrive at your thoughts, your philosophy on life, your perspective about people is a very beautiful process that I wish more people could integrate and adapt into their own lives. So hopefully that will come forth in this episode. So thank you for being you. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. This is what I typically do. I'm going to go on my Instagram account. And so for anyone who wants to follow me on Instagram, it's just Cozett Dunn, COZ as in zebra, ETTDUNN. This is where I brain dump a lot of thoughts, a lot of material for my upcoming book release, which will be in just a couple of weeks.
Yay.
Comes and is posted on my Instagram. So feel free to check that out. But so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use some of my quotes that I feel are timely for this episode, and I'm just going to pick your brain about them, okay?
Okay.
All right. So the first one, I really just, when I read this, I was like, oh, I'm so going to talk to her about this one. Okay. So it is this. You cannot reject even one aspect of the creation if you want to begin to comprehend the mind of the creator. You can't reject even one aspect of the creation and claim to adore the creator. If you reject any part of creation and claim to adore the creator, you are not in faith. Your uncertainty or disdain for any part of how creation is expressed is a clear indicator that you do not trust the intelligence of the creator. So that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah,
But that's what we do. So many of our conversations revolve around the spiritual journeys that we have had. and how we have learned God, unlearned God, and relearned God. And
Our
so,
yeah.
yes, and are relearning. Um, and so the heart behind that quote was just, it was birthed from a place of exasperation because of the division that I see that is so prevalent in our society right now. There are these huge, painful chasms that exist between right and left, people who consider everything either good or bad. It's like gray areas don't exist right now, and that's causing harm to a lot of folks. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you had said, you talked about our spiritual journeys, our respective spiritual journeys, and how we have learned and then unlearned and are kind of relearning or reforming sort of what we've always believed. And that's been a huge part of my life journey just over the past few years, is trying to, and I was saying this to someone just yesterday, just trying to put the pieces back together. I grew up in I grew up religious. And, before I go any further, I want to say that I'm truly thankful for my foundation, because had it not been for that, the door may not have even ever opened for me to explore spirituality and explore my spiritual side. So I'm grateful for that. I have friends to this day that are just very dear to me that I met when I was in church. So I do not take that for granted. And that is a very big part of my foundation. Having said that, there was a lot that I learned, that I was taught, that I feel like honestly kind of did me some harm. And I know that there was no malice in that. No one taught me anything to be malicious or harmful. They taught me what they believed. But, when you grow up in a certain spiritual capacity or whatever, you take on those characteristics. And one of the characteristics that just kind of seems to be a default when you grow up in a lot of Christian or spiritual religious circles is elitism. And I don't think, again, I don't think anyone means to be that. I mean, I'm sure some people do, but for the most part, it's not a malicious thing. It just happens as a result of the way that you learn and the way that you believe in spirituality. And when I say elitism, you have this, the particular Christian faith that I grew up in. You believe in heaven, you believe in hell. If you get saved and you accept Jesus as your savior, you go to heaven. If you don't, if you reject him, you go to hell. And so that makes it very black or white, very right or wrong. And it's very easy to feel like you have the upper hand on someone if you're saved and the other person is not. And so a lot of different religions, and I didn't experience this in, where I grew up, but a lot of religious factions and sects who believe that way are very malicious toward people who don't believe the same way. And so to me, when I hear that quote, if you don't love and accept every part of the creation, then how can you love and accept the creator? To me, that's very obvious and very clear. But you grow up in this and you're taught this way, and you kind of live with that mindset, sometimes even without realizing it, you do shun the creation. I remember this was several years ago, and this was kind of right before I started sort of breaking down my spirituality. I was sitting with a group of girlfriends, and we were talking about, just girls spending time together and having friends and hanging out. And one of the girls in the group said, just very casually, she's like, it's so fun just to hang around with my Christian friends, because I just don't have anything in common with my friends anymore who aren't Christian, and I just don't want to spend time with them. And I remember thinking, and I mean, I was still like right in the middle of it at that point. I remember thinking how sad that is, how sad that is that we don't have anything in common with other humans just because they don't believe the same way that we do. And so I think that quote, I think that is very apt and very true. And I think that people need to, if they don't, they need to think that way, and they need to start re-examining their faith if they don't feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. And, one thing that is so shocking to me, and I'll be honest, it's been a traumatic thing for me. It has caused me to feel very disoriented, is seeing the venom and the vitriol of people that are church going people that I used to love and respect greatly. I used to think that, they were so pious and I should be like them. But over the last few years, just seeing the anger and the rage and the name calling, it's been hard to watch. So, and thinking about your friend that you mentioned, how she was like, I just don't have anything in common with people who aren't saved. Like, I don't want to be with them. That's the exact opposite of Jesus, who that person claims to follow. You know, when you look in the New Testament and you see who Jesus intentionally chose to be around, to spend intimate quality time with, whether that was his disciples or whether it was him going to a party, he chose to spend his time with people who were not religious. The only interactions he had with religious, pious people were to correct them, were to scold them for being so religious that it excluded and harmed other human beings. You know, I'm reminded of one occasion when apparently Jesus did a big no-no and healed someone on a Sabbath day, and
Yeah,
everybody got up in arms. What'd you say?
I said that rebel.
I know. Oh my goodness. And so, he told the people, you follow the Old Testament and you love King David. You know, King David fed his soldiers heads of grain on the Sabbath. In other words, the first thing you should do is love humans, not hold them to a religious dogma, because that's not what it's about. So that made me think about that, how it's just like we've come so far, and the whole I feel like people like you and I, we are kind of, or at least I'll speak for myself, I feel like I am grappling to find other people who believe and adhere to the example of Jesus, not because they're pious, not because they don't drink or smoke or cuss, but because they love people and they put people over religion. And I don't feel there's a lot. I mean, we're here in the Bible Belt, right? We're in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And so the Christian context here is one that is super fundamental, super conservative, and anything outside of that structure of conservative Christianity, you really do end up knowing what persecution is about.
Yeah.
So,
I know for me, the thing that's most important to me, I don't care. Like I have many friends who are, very conservative, very religious. I have many friends who are not at all. I have friends that are, spiritual, but don't consider themselves, any particular religion or Christianity or whatever. The only qualifier for me for someone that I want to spend time with is that they're open minded. if they are open to, think that maybe they don't know everything, because that's how I feel. I don't know everything. And the older I get, the less I realize that I know. And it's funny because, and it's a very disconcerting thing to totally change your belief system, because when you grow up, you think, I know these are things that I absolutely know. And then you go through things and you realize, okay, I thought I knew that, but apparently I don't. And so, you get to a place where you're like, okay, what do I believe? What do I know? Is there any kind of solid foundation? And in order to get to that place, and in order to get beyond that place and kind of realize and figure out what you do believe, you have to have an open-mindedness. And I've said this before, and I'll say this until the day that I die. And one of the best things that I ever did as far as my spirituality was to come to a place where I was open to any possibility. And I remember the day that it kind of all started breaking down for me. I had gone to see my therapist, and I was laying on my bed, and I was so frustrated because I had been, struggling spiritually and trying to figure out kind of what I believed. And I remember laying on my bed and I prayed, and I said, God, God, universe, whatever, I want to know who you really are, even if it flies in the face of everything that I thought I ever knew, no matter what you want to show me. And I left room for anything. And that was probably the best prayer that I think I ever prayed. And getting myself to a place where I was open to anything, I think that has made me a better person. I think it's made me a better person, at least a smarter one, at least a little bit
Yeah.
of a. So for me, as far as spending time with people and having friends, that's really the only qualifier for me, is that they're open-minded and they're willing to think maybe I'm not right about everything.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. Same here, actually. So there's two things I just want to say. Number one is I have firsthand witnessed your growth, transformation, and I have seen this ever unfolding wholeness become more and more characteristic of who you are since you prayed that prayer. I mean, you have up leveled in so many ways since then, and I've seen you recover from lots of, trauma after that prayer. So I think it just takes, like you said, you have to be willing to be open. Openness has to do with vulnerability, and vulnerability can be a scary thing. I get that. But unless you're open, if you're closed-minded, you're saying there's nothing more that you can teach me. I've reached a threshold where there's nothing else that I can possibly learn to make myself a better human while I'm on this planet. That's what being closed-minded is. And then, there was another thing. We'll probably have to come back to it because I can't remember it. Oh, well, nope, left me in.
This is all of our conversations
I
too.
was gonna say this is us doing us, no doubt about it. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. A few days ago, I mentioned this to you. We were talking about creating a very intentional circle of friends. And while it has been devastating to see, religious folks that we have known all of our lives, maybe, or for several years anyway, um, we don't want to go to the other extreme where we will never allow conservative people into our lives,
Yeah.
because I think if you're going to be a well-rounded person, you have to be able to not only have a circumspect view of the world around you, but, you know, you have to be, how do I say this? You have to be sharpened by both ends if you're ever going to walk in balance and be a person of influence and a person who is effective in their lives and with their messages.
Yeah, well, it's like I was saying a minute ago. I still have friends that are very conservative. And there are friends that I have that we know that we absolutely disagree on certain points, but we choose to still be friends and respect the other person's opinion and the other person's belief system. And I just want to say too that anything, any kind of thought process or personality trait or whatever that I come against, it's because I've been that way myself, and I don't want to be that way anymore. I've been elitist, I've been closed minded. And so I know how destructive that is. Like I have a friend now, I guess I would still call him a friend. We were so close when we were younger. And he's a homosexual. And when I first found out, I was in the height of my religious fervor, and I was very, I won't say I was rude or cruel to him, but I didn't treat him the way that I would treat him now. Does that make sense? Because like I said, I was at the height of my religious fervor. And when you're Christian and you're religious, homosexuality is like the unpardonable sin. And so in my mind at that time, I felt like I was doing him a favor. And now we're not close anymore. And I know that it's because of the way that I treated him when I found out he was homosexual. And I regret that to this day. But you treat people certain ways. I don't know, when you have those kind of thoughts and those kinds of beliefs, you don't accept people for who they are. And that is not who I am anymore. I don't want to be that way. Um, so I forgot I was going somewhere with that, and I forgot where I was going. But the point that I'm trying to make is that any kind of, like I was saying, anything that I come against, any kind of thought process or treatment of people that I come against it because that's how I used to be. I'm not trying to condemn anyone or make anyone feel bad. I'm just saying I used to think this way. It's not right. And I don't think this way anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And like, I just want to say that it is that very attitude that we all need. I mean, you are being so open, so vulnerable, so authentic, and saying, you know what, I was wrong and it caused damage, it hurt.
Yeah.
And I have repented, right? I have repented of that. And I now hold a different view. And I think that's another message that society really needs to hear. And that is, you know, who I was 10 years ago is not who I'm going to be 10 years from, that point or whatever. You know what I'm trying to say? But it's
Mm-hmm.
like we grow and our belief systems should do the same. They should not remain static. Can we inherit the faith of our childhood, the faith of our familial context? Absolutely. But those contexts should be springboards, rather than, places that never grow or evolve beyond the basics, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for being open and setting that example of just being like, you know what, I don't think that way anymore. I want us all to be like that.
I just feel like anything that separates you from another person or makes you feel like you should shun another person or push another person away, or anything that makes you feel like you know better than another person, that should automatically be your sign.
Yes,
That's our sign that we're not thinking right. We're not thinking clearly.
exactly.
I
And
mean,
you know,
important saying, how can you love people if you're pushing them away because their belief system is not the same as yours?
exactly. And it's like, it's all about humanity. And, this even carries over into any spirituality, regardless of whether it's rooted in Christian beliefs or if it's pagan beliefs, religious beliefs of any kind. The moment that you feel like you are the enlightened one and you are comparing yourselves, you're comparing your beliefs as superior. And a lot of times that just happens in the quiet of your mind. It's not something you ever really voice, but it's
Mhm.
carried out in your philosophy, your attitude, and the way you just move through life. And people pick up on that. They know if you feel that way, whether you ever verbalize it or not.
Energy,
It is. Energy does not lie.
for sure.
Yeah, so true. All right. I think I have some more quotes. I want to pick your brain about more.
We're moving them out.
Yes. I hope I can get to all of them. Okay. Here's a good one. And this goes right along, kind of like with what we've been talking about. And this is something that I know for sure you and I resonate with because we're both so personal growth oriented. So this is what I posted. I posted this back on January 3rd of this year. I said, when you eat, sleep, drink, and breathe personal growth, everything you do is for the purpose of knowing. When knowing becomes an all encompassing state, you have just begun to touch the divine. And when you touch the divine, your fingerprints on the world around you become indelible. So
Mm.
what are your thoughts on that?
Hmm. My first thought, I mean, the first thing that just popped in my mind is, how can we ever really know? um, I think touching the divine in whatever context that is vital. um, at least it is for me. But I don't know. And I absolutely believe in personal growth. I mean, I'm all about personal growth and development and learning and growing. I think I just maybe have a little bit of trouble with the word no, because I think, especially for me, and I just realized I look around a lot when I'm talking. For me, that's the issues as I've grown up and as I've grown, in this particular faith that I grew up in, is feeling like I knew. So I feel like I'm in a constant state of learning, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily knowing, but I'm in a constant state of learning. And as I grow and as I learn and develop, then I feel like I get closer to
Mm-hmm.
the divine. But to say that there are things that I definitely know, to me at this point, yes, I do have concepts and precepts and things that I kind of cling to as, foundational things that I cling to, but I don't want to hold on to anything so tightly that I can't let it go. So I think for me, that brings me closer to the divine than saying that there's anything that I hard and fast specifically know to be true.
So let me ask you this. I love how you just unrolled that and you're thinking out loud. That was really nice.
That's what we do.
I
We just
know, right?
so many things I figure out as I'm trying to explain what I think I know about it.
Yeah, same. So I'm thinking about, and I remember hearing this preached a lot in church. There's this Hebraic concept, a Hebraic word, Hebrew word, I guess, um, in the Bible. And when it talks about knowing God or knowing the divine, the word that is used is yada. And it carries a connotation of not just head knowledge, but an intimate experience. And that being the way that you come to know the divine. So it's almost like the divine can be experienced, but not necessarily explained.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. I absolutely believe that. One of the things too that I have learned about myself is that I am very intuitive, and
Mm-hmm.
so often growing up, I shut that down because you're taught, the way that I was taught, the Bible is the absolute truth. And if anything you feel or anything you sense or anything you think goes against that, then it's wrong. And so I was taught to not listen to what's inside. My emotions are fickle. My intuition is absolutely wrong if it even appears to go against the Bible. And I know a lot of my conservative friends would slit my throat over this one, but honestly, believing in 100% inerrancy of the Bible did a lot of damage to me. And I don't believe that anymore. I don't believe that the Bible is 100% literal. Um, you may end up not publishing this after I say that, but I don't. I don't believe that way anymore. And I think that I have had to, one of the biggest lessons that I have learned is how to trust my intuition, trust my heart. When I say intuition, I'm talking about my heart. Our heart, if our motives are good, our hearts are trustworthy. We can
Yes.
trust God here. In fact, that's probably what we should trust more than anything. Because if there is a creator and we are created, and our creator put our hearts in us and put our desires in us and put our thoughts and our feelings. This doesn't mean, of course, that we're 100% right, and this doesn't mean that we can't learn things, and it certainly doesn't mean that we can't get good advice from other people, but I think our heart is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think following that has been one of the biggest lessons for me. And not saying what I feel, not saying what I think and what's in my heart, that has done me more damage over the years. I still am struggling to kind of unravel the pieces of that. But I feel like you can't really know. I love how you explain that word. You can't really know, you can experience. And to me, part of that experiencing comes here.
It does. Yeah,
So there's that.
absolutely. Wholeheartedly agree. And I just want to say too that watching you follow your heart has encouraged me to do the same because I always was fearful of doing just that. But seeing you and the results that it has produced in your life, it was almost like a no-brainer to do the same. So thank you for inspiring me in that way too.
And that's very sweet. I'm
Yeah.
giving
So,
a big head.
um, all right, let's see what else I got. So much we might actually just have to say for another episode because I think about it and I'm just like, oh, we could talk about this forever. Um, so I guess just thinking about this, well, I'll say this. This is another thing I've been thinking about, and that is, when we talk about trusting our hearts, and we hear it all the time in conservative circles, the heart is wicked. You know what I mean? Don't ever trust your heart. It's vile, it's deceptive. And I used to always think, but Jesus gave us a new heart. What is the problem? You know what I mean? Like, why would you, over the years, how I've seen that now, especially now, I'm like, that is a horrible thing to say to someone, to anyone, whether they're spiritual, religious, or whatever, number one. But number two, it creates a people who are all too willing to participate in self-betrayal. And I feel like that causes such an unhealthy disconnect within the human psyche. Okay, it disconnects our heart from our body, our heart from our mind, our heart from our soul. And what ends up happening is these beautiful, beautiful hearts that we've been given, these beautiful hearts that we all have, end up getting walled off, a bad rap, and ignored. And I think that's such a travesty. And religion is the biggest propagator of that travesty.
Yeah, like I remember growing up, we were all about, oh, what is God's will for my life? What is God's will for my life? And we would have this burning desire to do something, but we would think, but what if that's not God's will? And I mean, someone who didn't grow up in that kind of faith and just followed what their desires were and followed their heart just instinctually, you would see them excel and do great things. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think, and it's so funny too, because the Bible even says to guard your heart because, that's where your life springs from. And
Hmm.
so, I mean, that book itself tells you that your life flows forth from your heart. And so it's interesting to me that it was taught that way, or that, people weren't taught to follow what's in here. But yeah, I agree. I think people have walled off their heart. I think they've become very legalistic, and um you and I have talked about before that we have followed the law above following our heart. And by law, I mean, the Bible, the scripture, whatever. Um, and I just think that does damage, not just to the people that you encounter, but to your own spirit, to your own peace of mind.
Truthfully, it does. And that is like a whole episode in and of itself, because I can certainly think to many instances where that disconnect has caused me a great deal of mental health issues. Even there were years of just utter depression and hopelessness and despair because of that very thing.
Well, even in
Um,
the world where we are now, and what's going on in our country and even in other countries that are so strictly adhering to, whether it be the Bible or other religious texts, whatever, that's what so much of the fighting is about. No, my rule book says this, but wait, my rule book says this. You see that very prevalent in the world today. And so I don't know. I just think if people would, and honestly, I think that too is what corrupts a heart, is when
mm,
welch that long enough and they are so adherent to the rule books and not so much to their heart. I think after you push it down and shove it down and ignore it for so long, that's what causes the violence and the hatred and a lot of the things that we're dealing with today.
it does. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. There's this huge chasm, and it just feels so unbridgeable at times. And, as we've been talking here, I've just been thinking, you and I are in this very circumspect place, this very, for lack of a better word, balanced place, I guess you could say. We're absolutely not neutral, but, you know, we have people in our lives, I'm sure, who, whether they be conservative or whether they be super liberal, whether they're, whether they believe in God or whether they're atheists, we kind of fall smack dab in the middle. You know what I mean? Like, and that, I don't know, it's a funny dynamic in a way, because it's like we can relate with everyone, but because they can't relate to people that we do relate to, then they may not agree with us. You know what I mean?
Our friend groups end up
Yeah,
being very varied.
very varied. Yes. I love it though. So I want to read something if I can find it, and we can maybe wrap up with this thought. Um, I did a post a while back. Let's see here. It was about, and I may not even be able to find it, but it was talking about, yeah, here it is. I did this on my WordPress, but it's on my Facebook page as well. And the title of it is Cozett Contemplates How She Brought Us All Together Again. And so there have been times since, especially since 2020, but even probably a couple of years before that, that I had gone into just absolute mourning about the divides and the schisms that I was seeing. And it just really affected me. I'm still recovering from it all, and I'm super sensitive to that kind of divisive energy. If I pick up on it, then I definitely move away from wherever that energy is coming from. But I know that for me, if there was one singular message that I could carry with me, um, to the world, if there was one singular thing I could be known for as my legacy on my deathbed, it would be that I effectively united a very contrasting humanity
Mhm.
in genuine love for one another. And that is absolutely possible in spite of our differences, because there's so much more that unites us than divides us. We all want safe schools. We all want clean air, clean water. None of us like violence. There's just, you know what I mean? The only reason we are opposed to each other is because someone is telling us we should be.
Mm.
Because if it's left up to our hearts, unless you're just a natural born killer, unless, there's something really deeply wrong, I believe in the human heart. I believe in the goodness of the human heart. Strangers have been some of the most healing forces in my life when I've been traveling. Heck, even when I've been on social media, and if I've been sick, it has been the kindness of strangers who are atheists, who are Islamic, who are Jewish, who are, you know what I mean? And I need them in my life, and I want to unite everyone. So let me ask you this. If you could carry one message to the world and be known for what that message would be as your legacy, do you know what it would be?
Honestly, hearing you say what you just said, I thought, well, that is a great way to say it, because that's exactly what I want. I want the same thing. And I, the way that I've always gone about it in the past, I'm very peace loving. I don't like drama. I don't like strife. I don't like people to fight and argue. And so in the past, the way that I have gone about that is to not stand for anything. I don't let people know necessarily what I believe. You can look at my Facebook page and you can't tell what my religious affiliation is. which I don't really have no religious affiliation now, but you can't tell what political party I'm with. And I feel like I've really kind of done a disservice that way in the past, because I believe that I've been given a voice for a reason. And I believe that, the things that I have to say are just as important as what anyone else has to say. But I have been very quiet about it because I didn't want to alienate anyone. And so, but my reasoning behind that, the reason that I don't want to alienate people is because I love people. I want people to be together. I want people to come together. I want diversity, but I want people to embrace each other's diversity. So yeah, if I could be known for that same thing of being able to bring people together and being able to have so many people that I love and that love me, that are of different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different religious beliefs, different political affiliations, whatever, that's what I would want to be known for.
Yes, and amen to that. That's powerful and profound. I love that. I just feel such a feel good energy right now.
My lip is quivering because I've had so much caffeine today. I'm just sitting here kind of shaking in my body thinking, God, I hope no one can see that.
Well, I don't see it, but that's pretty hilarious.
Yeah. Cool.
So for all you viewers who are watching this, let us know, drop in the comments if you see her lip quivering.
Or any other part of me, because I'm just sitting here. I don't know if it's all on the inside or if it's visible, but
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Is there anything that you would like to leave with the Cozett Contemplates community? Anything that you would like to tell people?
Yes, when Cozette's book comes out, I get to buy the first copy, but after that, you guys need to run for it. So that's what I will leave with Cozett Contemplates community here.
Oh my God, you're so epic. Yes, so I am going to be releasing my first book in probably just a few weeks. So the date of this recording is January 24th, 2023. It will probably be ready within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So as soon as that gets released, my bestie over here is going to be buying the first book.
That's right.
And then
Threaten you within an inch of life if I don't get the first one.
I know. Thank you for your encouragement, though. It's taken that living under the threat of my life to get
Yeah,
motivated. So,
basically.
so yeah, I hope everybody will buy your copy of Cozett Contemplates when it comes out. It's going to be the first of many. So, all right, awesome. Well, thank you so much, my cousin Margo, my
Yeah,
Grizz.
we finally did it. We've been saying
Finally.
going to, so
I know. So, and this hopefully will be the first of many more with you as well, because I love our time together doing this.
I will come back anytime you request.
You rock. All right. I appreciate you. If you have not subscribed to my channel, I hope that you will. This is a safe space. I am intentioning in building a very rich, deep, meaningful community here that goes way beyond the superficial. I want us to be a community of helpers, people who love on each other, who love the world around us, and really make a difference. Okay. So I hope that you will like, share, and subscribe. All right. I will see you soon. Bye.
Bye, everyone.